Oh.
Of you, I hope you're thinking of me down in the city. I can't handle any more crazy women today. He wasn't able to land her. Electrical storm in the sky. Force field on full speed ahead. Really, oxygen was the commander. And here I go again. Here I go again. Falling in love and messing it up. Here I go again. You're a woman now. You're a woman now. Journeys in outer space, a different time, a different place. Wish I could be there.
Wow, that is Helix. All right. You know what? I got so engrossed in what I was listening to, I forgot to do some shout outs tonight to let people know that we're actually live tonight. So we are going to send out some shout outs right now to people out there. And I am going to throw a couple things up here. We got some new music coming out this month. We got a whole lot of new music coming out of TUNZ Records this month, all digital downloads. He Said, She Said has a tune called Time Well Spent. They are a pop duo from, I would call it kind of central Ontario, north. And yeah, that is He Said, She Said. They've got a new single coming out. That is going to come out near the end of the month. And they also got a video that's coming out at the end of the month as well for that tune. All right, we got My Wicked Twin, Breathe My Name. That's right, Brent Donner from Helix, formerly of Helix. And he wrote a song called Breathe My Name. That is dropping soon, May the 12th. And we've already premiered the video and it's getting good reviews. That is awesome. And we've got a Slant 6 EP coming out called Renaissance. And I think you're going to get some free downloads if you can guess why the EP is called Renaissance. So you're going to want to check that out as well. But I am not going to believe this anymore. But Brent told me I should always put shameless plugs in for Indie Records, and I am. And I'm proud that we got this guy on our label. There's my friend Brian Vollmer.
How you doing?
I am doing great. How are you tonight, my friend?
I'm beardless for the first time.
I see that. And how long did it take Linda to notice that?
About a day. I know.
A day.
She hated it too. I kept giving her hints, saying, "You're so observant."
You look younger.
And then I give me a kiss, and I rub my face up against hers, and I tell her how observant she was again, and kind of give me a weird look. And about during the day, I had to say, "Look, don't you notice anything different about me?" And then she finally caught on. Plus, I posted it too.
Right. Well, you look. I think you look younger.
Yeah, well, when I get down to Florida in the winter, I always go out, go fishing.
Yeah, you actually, to me, it looked like you belonged on a fishing boat. when you were down there this summer.
Yeah, I went as much as I could, but I still work a lot when I'm down in Florida. I have a routine
Right.
of going to the computer and getting on it and advancing gigs of sorting out photographs or editing film. I'm always doing something. So
Right. And so winter, I mean, winter for you down in Florida is like you probably spend most of your time in khakis and sandals and t-shirts, right?
well, not sandals, but walking shoes. I try to
Oh
get
yeah, you
20,000 steps in a day when I'm down there. Up here, it's kind of hard to do. I've been trying to get out with the dog, but the weather's been so crappy lately.
and you got to do some fishing this summer or last winter.
Went down to Costa Rica. We did some fishing out in the Gulf too. We didn't catch anything there though, but went down to Costa Rica and I caught a tuna and along with my buddy Derek and his son and another guy I met down there, Steve. Got 3 sailfish and my too.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, Derek
Great.
they caught the my and the wind swordfish.
Now you actually kicked off your winter in Florida by playing a concert down in the Keys, right?
Yeah, it was in January. I actually had to come all the way back to Canada. According to the work permit to legally do this, I had to cross back into the United States with the band and go all the way down to back down to North Fort Myers, drive across the next day to Key West, play the gig, drive back to Fort Myers, fly back to Detroit, cross back into Canada. And basically, I had to rent a car. I drove across the border. I went through the drive-through at Tim Hortons. I turned around and right back to the border. And the border guy went, "What are you doing?"
Oh my God. How lame is that? How lame is that the government makes you do that?
I know. And so I said to the border guy, I said, "Look, and I'm going back." And I explained to him I had to come back to Canada in order to fulfill the requirements of the work permit. And he goes, "No, you didn't have to do that." I says, "Yes, I did. Believe me. I phoned the congressman. I phoned the border, everybody, right?" And then he looked at it more carefully. Said, "Oh yeah, you're right." He says,
Yeah,
"You did."
been there, done it. Got the T-shirt to prove it, right?
But whatever. I wanted to do the date. It was a high-profile date with Loverboy, Steve Adler of Guns N' Roses, and Honeymoon Suite down in Key West. And I always love playing in the United States too. So it helps our profile to be outside the territory of Canada. We're playing in Germany in September. So that's another kind of feather in our cap. Sets us aside from a lot of other bands that we are playing outside the country, especially over.
I honestly think that they should get you to play some major music festivals over in Europe because I mean, you know what? I mean, you've kept the legacy of Helix together for 40 years, man.
Well, we have played major festivals over there for a long time. Last time we were over was in, I believe, 2019. And we played Skogs Roadjet in outside of Malmo, Sweden, which was a major festival that was with Airborne, Glenn Hughes of Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, and my friend Bernie Shaw, who, by the way, is Canadian. He's from Vancouver. Who else was on that bill? The Darkness, who are friends of ours.
I'm telling if we've got any promoters and booking agents out there watching the show tonight, and you're in Europe, you're watching us from Europe, get a hold of Brian, man. You should consider hiring Helix to come out and play a massive concert in your country. They're well received in Europe, always have been.
Well, it's not as simple as that because first off, the problem with Europe is if you don't get 2 dates in the same weekend, it means you're staying for a week, right? Now you got to fly back to North America, then come back and turn right around and come back because it takes like a day and a half to get there. So in order to do that, you're looking at least $1,000 a day in hotel rooms. So most bands go for one date, or if they're lucky, they pick up a tour. But you got to be pretty high level band to pick up on a tour. That they're not out there like they used to be, and there is no
Right.
bar scene over in Europe, just like there's no bar scene anymore in North America. So, like I said, we played Rock Barcelona back in 2019. That was the same year we played Skogs Roja in Sweden. Rock
Right.
Barcelona, I think it regularly draws annually 80,000 people over 3 or 4 days. And
Yeah.
we
Here's
were ZZ Top, and that was at Dusty Hill was still live.
we
And
we
Def Leppard, Dee Snider, a lot of bands.
we got a good evening from Kapuskasing, Ontario. Brian, you played the Cap and Hearst, many other towns in Northern Ontario. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we played the Cap in some of the first times we played in Northern Ontario. We played the Cap in the Jack Pine Room, and we played the Queen's Hotel in Hearst. And I remember there was a bike club there called the Northern Commandos, I believe it was. And I don't know if they might have been the bike club that didn't have any bikes.
Or they didn't ride They didn't ride Norton. Sound like
They had
a
a bike
band.
that made them turn in their patches. But
Oh.
we made many friends up there, and we have many fond memories of playing in Northern Ontario.
You made friends. You made friends wherever you went, pretty much, didn't you?
Yeah, we were pretty personal people. We got out there in the audience. We were taught that by our manager, Bill Syke. He made us go out between sets. You know, bands had a tendency to stay locked in their rooms. It was no wonder, because a lot of audiences were hostile to the band back in those days. So wandering around the audience wasn't necessarily the most pleasant place to be, but we thrived on it. And you know, we had the Durner brothers in the band too, and Brett and Brian weren't afraid to get out there. And you know, if they did run into trouble at all in the audience, they weren't afraid to get dusted up a little bit. So,
you know, it's funny because if I had known that back in the day when you played in my neck of the woods, we would have been sure to have a table for you where you could come and chill with us.
that was a big thing with us. With the Telegraph, we had our own little newspaper, and we'd make the people part of the band, which we did a lot of things that bands at the time didn't do.
Right.
You know, we put out one of the first indie albums there was. In fact, 2 of the first indie albums that were. And we had our own little newsletter, which was, I think, a carryover from Bill Sype, something they used to do in the Great Rufus Road Machine, which was a show band. Do you know what the difference between a show band and a rock band is? A hell of a lot more money. That's actually a true statement, not a joke. Show bands played the A rooms, like the Water Tower and Sault Ste. Marie and the Crown Room,
right,
at the Coronet, and they usually were bands. A show band would dress up in the same coordinated suits, for instance, to be very talented musicians, but they have coordinated moves and stuff.
Right.
And they play the very top 40 stuff on the radio, or they were recording acts. Well, Bill Sype, who was our manager, was in Poverty Train, which was a rock band. Now, the rock bands, Helix was a rock band, right? But rock bands played the B rooms. In other words, we ended up in the Northern Ontario circuit playing places like the Travel Host in Timmins, the Brock Den in Sudbury, the Hearst in the Queens rather in Hearst, the Cap Inn. Those were B rooms, right? They were typically less money. The rooms weren't very nice where the band stayed. In fact, most of them were ice friggin' cold in the winter. So there was that difference between show bands and rock bands. But Bill Sype was in Poverty Train, which was a rock band, and he was in the Great Rufus Road Machine, which was a show band, and he made Helix into a combination of the two, which was unheard of at the time. So along comes Helix, and from the show band, we took the synchronized kicks. We took coordinated stage dress. Those were the things we took from the show band side of things, but we were inherently, our roots were in rock. we listened to Aerosmith and Ted Nugent. Those were the types of bands that we followed, not the top 40. We searched out the heavier bands, and so that's how we developed through the circuit as a
Right.
combination of those two things.
Yeah, so I mean, so there's that little known fact. I mean, if people don't really think about it, but Helix was one of the very first indie bands in Canada, if not the
In
first
the
indie
world,
band in Canada.
in the world, not just
And
Canada.
yeah, I mean, being an indie band back in the day and starting without a record label was unheard of.
It was unheard of. And I remember the afternoon, I forget where we were, but we were having a band meeting with Bill Sipe, and we were sitting outside. It was a nice summer day. We were all sitting in on this lawn or grass, and I remember bringing up at the meeting. We used to go around the circle, and we'd each have points. And so it came around to me, and I said, "I want to make an album." And so we all started discussing. Bill's taking notes, And Brian says he wants to make an album. Okay, who wants to make an album? So everybody puts up their hand. I can't remember how it went from there, but Bill, he figured out a way to get it done. He got money from his mother, from my parents, from Brent's parents, and I think the first album cost us $26,000, which is even nowadays a lot of money for an album.
That's right. That's right.
And we recorded that album at Springfield Sound. It's outside of London, Ontario, as you know, and Brian Ferryman, who went on to produce Michelle Wright, he was one of the owners of that recording studio.
Wow. And the cool thing about all of that back then was all the work that went in and the fact that your family stepped up for you. I mean, your families believed in what you were doing.
To an extent.
Yeah, I mean, some of the family members kicked.
My parents thought I was out of my mind, but my parents always backed me. When I first was singing in say high school and I wanted to follow rock, I drove my parents nuts. In fact, I drove everyone around me nuts. So I used to sing waiting for the bus in the morning. I used to sing on the bus going to school to
Right.
force people to listen to me sing, right? And
Right.
I was just a strange kid.
Right.
I was just discussing this with someone yesterday. I can even remember I went to a Catholic separate school, and I remember, maybe you remember this. I don't know. I'm a little older, but they used to do photocopies of like flowers and stuff. You'd have to color them in. Do you remember that?
Yep. I remember that.
Well, I remember we had the teacher had a series of flowers that we had a book that we kept, and we all had paint or
Right.
color these flowers, and we got this one of a violet we had to color, right? So,
Right.
as a kid, Dennis Stemler, he shaded it in nice light blue and then dark around the edges, and put emphasis on different parts of the flower. Right, and the teacher, when she saw it, she just thought it was incredible. She just praised them and brought them up front of the class, and so everybody wanted to make their picture like Dennis Stemler's, right?
Right.
Except me. Mine was like dark blue, right? And I remember thinking, but the funny thing was, and things sticking out in your mind over your life. Remember it sticking out in my mind. Why can't I be like the other kids?
Right.
I felt like that much in my life, like I was swimming against the current. But I think that's what makes life interesting. There's actually a song I learned in high school, which is a famous poem by Robert Frost called "Two Roads Diverged." Have you ever heard that poem?
No, I don't think so.
It goes, two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down both as far as I could, to where it went in the underbrush. And what the poem means is everyone comes to a crossroad in life. They take the one more traveled or the one less traveled.
Right.
It just happens I went down the one less traveled. But, And everybody has choices to make in life. And
There's a lot of roads that are less traveled in life. I mean, some of the things that I mean, a road less traveled could also be something you never expected yourself to do, right?
from what context?
Well, I mean, if you believed you were destined to be something, but you became something different, or you thought you were destined to become something, but you actually
Well,
became
I
something
think a lot
different.
of people do that. A lot of people, instead of following their heart, in other words, that internal voice. Listen, when you hear that voice inside you, that's God talking to you. That's
Hmm.
whatever, right? The universe, forever telling you what to do. But we go against that voice a lot of times because we're influenced by what we think society might say about us if we follow that path, or what our
Right,
parents might say about us, or our friends, or whoever, right? And
right,
and you know what I mean, that's not always and that's why a lot of people are unhappy because they don't do what they want to do in life. And I'm not saying that you should be the center of the universe either. No,
right,
you know, I really believe that you're here to serve your your fellow man. I don't
right.
from that you have it all has to be about you, but I do believe that you know, that voice does tell you what you should do with your life, and if you really listen to it, it'll direct you down the correct path you're supposed to walk. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and sometimes people don't listen to it for whatever reason. Like you say, that they've got something else in their mind, or something distracts them away from that. And then we think about it and we go, I should have listened to that voice inside me that said, "Do this."
Well, think about this. There's so many artists that go, "Oh yeah, I'm in it for the music. I'm in it for the fans. I'm in it for blah 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 blah." Right? And then as
Right,
soon as times get tough, they go, "This screw this. I'm out of here." Right?
right.
Make money in the music business. I'm out of here. And I've often thought to myself, well, I thought you were in this business to write songs, to create.
Yeah.
What is it?
And
You
it's not going to be it's not going to be a smooth ride, because you're going to have ups and downs. Sometimes it's going to work, and sometimes it's not going to work.
Well, if you look at old Gordon Lightfoot, who just passed away, that guy wrote songs right up to the day almost that he died.
That's right.
Same with Johnny Cash, the truly great artist. I think they never stopped creating. It's not about the money; it's about the creation.
No.
Because look at it, if you keep creating and you put out a good product, like you take Brent, you said was coming out with a new album. I heard some of Brent's new stuff. It's brilliant. Um, and Brent just keeps creating. He's a very creative guy. I've known Brent since forever,
Right.
right? And and I love watching him at work because I can see that creative mind of his working all the time.
He does have a creative mind. There's no doubt about it.
He just keeps getting better and better and better at his craft.
Yeah.
He's not driven by money. He's driven by creating.
He's been a really good friend to me. He helped bring you my direction.
Well, that's nice. Well, destiny.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and
You're right. I really think things are meant to happen as long as you continue to push forward. You're not going
yeah,
to have things happen in your life or sitting on the couch. Come on.
we've been Brent and I become really really great friends, to the point where he's actually helping me, modify my YouTube channel. So I'm really really grateful for all of that help, because he's a really smart dude.
You have to be willing to keep trying to learn, especially at my age. I think that older people, there's a tendency in your mind to fight anything that's new.
You're not old anyway.
Well, I don't feel old, but you know,
My dad is old. He's 96.
no, but a lot of people do get my age. They consider themselves old because it's around what society considers retirement age.
Yeah.
Like people say to me, "Well, you're still working. You need to work," right? Because they expect you to. Because most people hate their jobs. I think that's what it comes back to. Like they look at retirement like, "Wow,
You love your job.
but I worked for my whole life, right?" For me, I've always done what I wanted to do, so there's never really a thought of quitting.
And you've loved your
In fact,
job.
I don't know what I'd do if I quit.
Well, you're not going to quit. We're just going to keep you singing until the
I hope,
day.
unless one day I just wake up and get so pissed off with the music business, I throw my hands up in the air. I've had
Well,
those.
that's when it's time to become an actor, because that voice, with a voice like that, I'm surprised you haven't done theater.
Well, I would have liked to done theater, but you can't do everything. In fact, I was just thinking today, I don't have
You can
enough hours in my day as it is.
you can still do
But I figured like we always think of older age. Here's another thing too: as you get older, right? You think you're gonna have so much spare time. The opposite is true, and the reason being is, and I'll tell you why. Here, I thought, well, why is that? Well, it's because you keep collecting things. Like, in other words, if you're focused on walking the dog for an hour and a half a day, you don't suddenly like you add one more thing to your day, but you don't subtract that from your day. So you keep
I
doing
honest
all these things you got to do all day long, right? So you're going, how come I can't? It doesn't seem like I'm getting anything done anymore. But in actuality, it's because you're trying to do twice as much.
Yeah, you got to slow it down a bit. You got to slow it down a bit. You were talking earlier about the fact that you still love singing and writing, and so I thought this would be appropriate. Singer-songwriter Brian Vollmer, because you become a singer-songwriter too, right?
Well, I've always considered myself a songwriter. What's your point?
Yeah, but you're a singer and a songwriter.
Yeah.
So aside from Helix, we've got singer-songwriter Brian Vollmer, who's going to be putting out some solo work.
Well, I got that the new album coming on vinyl, which is really an old album with 2 songs once again that are new. But now that I got 2 albums, kind of 3 albums out, plus there's certain Helix songs that basically I wrote. I definitely put together 2 sets and take it to these smaller venues.
Okay, yeah, the smaller venues, you got all that coming on.
There's a whole circuit of venues in Southern Ontario. There must be like 20, 30 places. They're like small theaters, hold like anywhere from 100 to 250 people. I think the trick is to go in and not lose money. Because
Yeah, I think
basically you're working with numbers, right? To be successful, you have to take care of the financial end of things. And when I go in and I do some of these dates myself, it's a matter of the price of the hall, plus the price of the players, and plus price anything else I might need, like say hotel rooms, right?
it's interesting.
Figure out how many tickets you got times the amount you're charging, and how many you need to break even, how many to make a profit, how many for a sellout, and you do
Right.
the numbers and you decide whether or not it's worth the gamble of doing the show. But I have enough material now. I could probably put together a band and go out as Brian Vollmer and do 2 40-minute sets, no problem.
Do you remember when Jeff Healey had his Jazz Kings band?
No, but I met Jeff Healey way back in the day.
Yeah, so he had an act called Jeff Healey and the Jazz Kings, and they used to play a bunch of small theaters. They used to play at the Roxy Theater up in Mount Forest.
Oh yeah.
And it's an old Capitol Theater that's been converted into a small music venue.
Well, there's a lot of beautiful venues. The biggest problem, well, not really a problem, but the biggest thing you have to figure out if you're going to do this circuit is how you're going to sell tickets. If you look at the artists that are on that whatever you want to call it, B circuit or whatever, the small theater circuit.
Right.
Sarah Smith, Doug Vardy, Zed, which is Sean Sanders.
Yep.
And doing the Zeppelin tribute. The Mudmen are on that circuit, right? So you basically have to figure out how to cut costs to the bone and go in and give a quality show to people. But the great venues, I love playing there because they're small, they're intimate, they're like, like the Princess Theater we're playing in St. Thomas. It's a beautiful, beautiful theater. It's an old church. So you're like right there. There's only 100 people. It's like playing in your living room to this crowd, right? And then, the whole show is about telling stories. So almost like sitting around a campfire. And for fans, it's great because for $45, you're at the private campfire, Helix campfire. So, and
Yeah,
we're
I think that
the
I
band
think having a
really good stripped down. Like at practice the other day, we were discussing how most people don't think of Helix as being a vocal band, but when you go down to acoustic guitars and vocals, it's amazing when you hear Helix do 4-part harmony. And we always did that. It's just that I don't know. I think people didn't notice we were jumping all over the stage and things like that, but we had a lot of harmonies and just good musicianship in the band. That's going to
yeah,
be showcased in this show.
I think that the if we could find somebody to do financial backing for something like that, you could get a bunch of artists to jump on this thing and do it as a small circuit. Do it as another another set up as a group tour. I mean, why not?
Sure, or what some places like Centennial Hall will have like the opera series, like, just for lack of a better name, right? They have like the symphony orchestra, and they'll bring artists in like once a month or something, and people buy tickets to say 7 different shows, right? The problem with running like just night after night is that people tend not to come out on Tuesday nights.
Right. Right. But you know what? I mean, the thing is that sometimes if there's nothing going on, like it's a great opportunity to get out and have a fun evening of music, right? Why not?
Well, it would be if they dropped the price, but from a perspective of someone renting the hall and doing the gig, I'd much rather take a chance on a Friday night than Tuesday night. If the prices, if my costs are the same, why would I run Tuesday?
Right.
I'll run Friday because that's the night more of a chance of it being successful.
Yeah, more chance you're going to get some people out. We used to always when I used to. Here's a funny thing. I have to tell you this, and I don't think I told you this before. So, back in the day, we're talking like 1978, 79. I was in a cover band, but we didn't cover traditional bands. We covered Helix and Gatto, Rough Trade. I mean, we were already playing Helix music.
That's like Todd Kern's band now. They play all Canadian music.
Yeah.
I always wanted to do an all Canadian cover album. We even had a title for it.
Right.
Many are cold, but few are frozen.
That's funny.
I was going to have beer bottles in the snow with all the names of the songs on.
Yeah, we
I had
always
another idea though. Like you're talking about a string of concerts, right? I had this wacky idea of where I had my Airbnb, as you know, in London,
right.
And there's a huge backyard of the place, and I was thinking of putting a stage at the one end and actually having like 5 nights in a row where we just actually have, we're talking about singing around the campfire, having that. Having say an early 6 o'clock show or something,
right?
And where we taught the audience and everything else, and then later on a barbecue, and then later on sit around the fire and just mingle with people, fans.
I think we should get the municipality of Port Stanley to hire Helix to play on the beach some summer.
Once again, it depends on money.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, think about it. You play down on Port Stanley on the beach in the summertime. You got thousands of people down there already. Are they not going to want to stay for a concert that's put on by the township as a way, like Great Canada Day celebration, right?
That's right. They should hire us.
Yeah, they should hire you to play on the beach on Port Stanley on Canada Day. What would be more Canadian than to have an iconic Canadian rock band playing on the beach in Port Stanley on Canada Day?
That's right, or in Listowel, Ontario, where I'm from. Listowel should hire the band.
Listowel's got a great outdoor community center.
we were talking about my soul. If I took out a solo band, right, that'd probably be one place where I target Listowel because I'm from Listowel.
Right. Hey, here's
A
some.
lot of bands are selling tickets through. What is it? What is it? Not Light Bright. That's a Barbie doll thing. What is it? Where they sell the tickets? We're selling tickets for that show on it. You set it up. Come on.
We got a comment. We got a comment here from Elizabeth Miller. She says, "Would Helix ever consider playing the Auditorium in Kitchener, either alone or with a couple of other bands? And why are the ticket prices so low for these small venues? I mean, $35 to $45 seems way too low for a band like Helix, especially considering all the expenses."
Well, I'm just gauging what the marketplace is. I think once you get over $45, it's very hard to sell tickets. It's hard enough at $45. People are hurting out there. It's like, I buy groceries too. It's pretty expensive nowadays.
So here's the,
And that people still spend money in entertainment, but I don't know. I think you get any higher than 45, it becomes difficult.
a $45 ticket to go see you guys is well worth it as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think it is too. I know what the expenses are, but I don't
Yep.
expect people out there buying a ticket to know the expense I got. But we'll try it this time around. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and when you are financing your own show, it's always a little bit dicey because you got to at least break even on the event.
It'd be nice to get paid for all the work I do too.
That's right. I mean, you want to break even and make some money off the work to do it, because putting these things together is no easy feat. You guys are always rehearsing, and you guys live quite a distance apart too.
Yeah, Chich is down in Windsor. Kale's going to be an acoustic show. He's from Kitchener, but Daryl's from up in the peninsula in St. Catharines. Fritz is in Brantford. So we have Neil Fensky actually coming in for these shows. It's a long story, but he's going to be helping out. He's coming in.
Putting together these shows and doing the rehearsals and the logistics behind it all is just a lot of work. And
we might even add some audio visual to the show in London. We're going to make it a real event. Trying to get a lot. We have Dale Wright, the old Helix light man, coming out that night. Hopefully, Kenny Haig. Kenny Haig went sound for us for many years, and he went on to road manage the band. After he left Helix, he went and worked for Green Jelly, Melissa Etheridge. Who else? Fleetwood Mac, Live, Bette Midler. So,
Katie, who rocks hard and rides for free. Get your ducks out.
Nobody rides for free. What?
Nobody rides for free. Get your ducks out.
Yeah, that was a song we did in the bars. Is that what she's referring to?
Hey, this guy was insulted by that. You liked the chicken when you were over in the studio the other day, didn't you?
You're choking that chicken again, eh?
He's come back. I'm choking this is Charlie the chicken.
You're choking the chicken?
I'm choking the chicken. So listen, so a lot of really cool things about Helix right up until the first recording of the very first album, Breaking Loose in 1979. So you guys started in 74. We fast forward through all that, a whole lot of stuff that happened up until 1979. You get your first album out.
Yes.
What happens next?
I think at the time, it was a big mystery to us on how to do an album. I remember we showed up the first day and Bob Morton, the producer, was late. His car broke down, and Sipey was nervously pacing, and we were all freaking out, and we're going, "Oh, how?" And we're watching the time, and Sipey's writing down the friggin' time, and because we were so strapped for money to do this album and stuff, and so it was a real experience. And Sipey kept. Bill really wanted to do. This was after he played with Del Shannon, so Sipey had found this song that he loved by Del Shannon that he thought was a big hit song. He wanted us to record it. And of course, once again, when you try to force people to do stuff. They usually don't want to do it. But we did this song. Looking back, it's actually a really good song. It's called Thinking It Over. And so we recorded this song and never ended up in the album. But we ended up recording 2 tracks at Maxim outside of Stratford because we couldn't get them right in Springfield. There were Billy Oxygen and another song called Don't Stop, which we never used either. And this song was like the most, what's the word? How do you say it? Misogynistic.
Misogynistic.
Misogynistic. That's the word. Guilty. Right? It was one of those. It was like terrible. It was about making out with this chick in the back seat of a car. It was called "Don't Stop," believe it or not. And believe it, we were so young, we didn't realize how bad this was, right? And we did it at Wingham High School, and the principal freaked out. He come up with the intercom system on the Monday morning. He says, "This band is disgusting. They'll never play this high school band for life. And I got to report them to all the other high schools to ban them." And oh my God. And so that was the end of that song. And we never ever released that song, right? But anyway.
Oh man, that is classic.
We released the album comes out, right? And back then it was just vinyl. And we weren't really happy with how it sounded because I think at the time, we were used to jumping around stage and doing all these songs and, being very physical with them. And suddenly we heard these songs where you actually had to keep time and not speed up and stuff when you were in the studio. And fans too felt that lack of excitement in some of the tracks because, they weren't seeing a band jumping around like monkeys on stage hearing the record, right? So that was a little bit different, but we ended up getting a huge hit song on the album called "Your Woman Now" in Texas on Kiskamack, which was the station where a guy named Joe Anthony was the DJ, and Joe played black music when it wasn't fashionable to play black music, and he played metal music when it was first coming in, like Judas Priest and Moxie and Triumph and then Helix. And so we got all this airplane. We ended up doing our first tour of Texas, and we went down there and we played Helotus with Y&T, Yesterday and Today, Dave Meninghetti. And then we went to Amarillo College.
So is this 79 or 80 now?
I think it's, I don't know, 79 or 80, one of the two.
Right in there. Okay. Wow. I want to give a shout out tonight. We got a few people online watching the show and commenting in the chat room. We got Lynn and Donnie and Ricky and KG. Who else we got on there? Elizabeth, thanks for joining us tonight. Just a few of you people. Kyle, thanks for joining us tonight, man. Appreciate all the comments in the chat room. KG Walsh says, "I love that Helix acoustic album or unplugged album."
Yes, Smash Hits Unplugged. That came out, I believe that came out, when was it? What was the year? 2011, something like that. Can't remember.
Are we going to do a re-release of that?
No, it had to be later because it was after Chris joined the band. It must have been 2018, 17.
Right. Is that an album that we might re-release, Brian?
Oh, yeah, I can reprint any of these albums anytime.
Cool.
The big quandary in my mind is whether or not I should repress them as vinyl or repress them as CDs, because the vinyl sells better nowadays. It's outpaced CD sales, but one's obviously a lot easier to cart around. So I don't know. I kind of like vinyl because you spend so much time doing photo sessions and photography and things like that. And to see it shrunk down like this on a CD, just defeats the whole purpose. Like,
you can actually, people can actually go to our website. They can actually download the first album, the Breaking Loose album. They can download that whole album in digital format straight off our website. It's really slick as it goes, and there's a big chunk of that goes to Brian on every sale. And so why give it to anybody else when you can give it more directly to the artist? So you go right to our website and download it in high res audio and have
And
a really great digital
you
copy.
know that I'm just going to recycle it back into releasing more stuff. For instance, I think the next album I'll probably come out with is Vagabond Bones after
Right.
A Pleasure Doing Business, because that particular album I wrote with Sean Kelly for the most part, and I think I'll add Champagne Communist to that album.
Vagabond Bones, great tune, man.
What's that?
Vagabond Bones, I love it.
Vagabond Bones was a great album, and
Yeah.
it only had 9 songs, so I think I'm going to add Champagne Communist, maybe something else.
Right.
I've always liked Brent and Caleb's version of the William Tell Overture.
Yeah, the William Tell Overture was pretty good too.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Some good stuff to choose from. So we're into like 1979, 80 after the first album. You're actually going to be doing a limited pressing of A Pleasure Doing Business.
It's 500 units, so it's more than limited. It's 500 units. That's a lot of units, actually.
And he's got and you got they're going to be giving you pressing plates, so you'll be able to press more if need be.
Yeah, I found a place down in the United States. The problem in the United States was it wasn't a one-stop artwork / vinyl pressing place. I had to get the jackets done in Florida, and then I had to get the pressing done in Detroit. The reason I did that was because the lineup was so long in Canada with Precision out of Toronto, and the price was pretty high too.
Right.
It was like going to be like 9 months. I went to the States, and it was a much faster turnaround time. Now, I ended up missing the Christmas deadline, mostly because of the hurricane. So it's ended up taking to June anyway. But
I seem to remember a guy pointing you in the direction of Third Man Records in Detroit.
that was you.
I thought, well, I read a lot of good things about him, and it's owned, and Third Man Records is actually owned by Jack White.
Yes, and the thing I was most excited about was the album jacket. I was able to get the price down on the jackets, and I got one that opens up like this. Only there's just one, obviously, record in it, but I got all the lyrics on the inside, so it's a nice package.
Right.
I'm pretty happy.
And this is going to be entitled "A Pleasure Doing Business."
Yeah, I've reversed the title. I've taken 2 songs off the record. I've taken off Mad Mad World, which I never really liked. And if you want to tell the absolute truth about it. And Sleep in the Doghouse Again, which was really written by Mark Riddler only. And I've replaced it with Hungover But Still Hanging In, which isn't the same one as on Vagabond Bones, by the way.
Right.
That's a different Hungover But Still Hanging In.
Well, you know what? I have to,
and another song called Still Got That Look in Your Eyes.
I have to tell you, the original title of that album was called what?
It's a Business Doing Pleasure.
Yeah, A Business Doing Pleasure. And so here's the cool thing about that is that we have that album digitally. And you know what? I've listened to that album. I love that album. I'm sorry. I like it.
I like it too. I was kind of off that it became a Helix album because I think a lot of those songs were totally lost.
Yeah, I mean,
if fans looked at that album and what the hell is this? This isn't Helix. This sounds like because it's like pop / rock / country rock, country rock.
Okay, well, you know what? When we talk about that, okay, I want to come back to that because there was some really major stuff that went on in the band during that time. I mean, there was a big upheaval caused by a significant loss of a band member.
Well, not only that, there was a significant change in my life too. My first marriage fell apart. I was wandering around with everything I owned in a suitcase. This is after I had these gold and platinum albums here hanging on my wall. And I had like 0 cents in my pocket, and I was wandering the streets. And my buddy Randy and now does merchandise for me, took me in off the street and let me live in his apartment. Um, so it was like the bottom of my life, and then I went through a whole rash of bad relationships based on my big head falling my little head. Uh, and finally, I found my wife, who had changed my life, and here I am with her some 32 years later.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing is that life is full of those ups and downs, and it's like you said. I mean,
So,
you
Joe,
know, yeah, we have those moments. I I could write the T-shirt on what you just talked about. It happened to me, man. There was a point in time in life where my life could have literally fallen apart,
hmm
and it didn't. Because somebody stepped up to the plate and helped me along a little bit, and then boom, I hit the ground running again. But things like that can knock the wind out of your sails. So I mean, you lost a significant relationship in your life. You lost a significant band member, and
music was changing, and we were getting older, and then we lost our record deal, and all this terrible stuff was happening in our life.
yeah,
And I think it happens to a lot of bands like this.
right.
When you're riding a wave of success, I mean, when you're riding a wave of success, it feels like it's never going to end.
Oh, hey, I like this one, Brian.
And
Brian,
when it ends, and the
look
phone,
at this one here. Katie
yeah,
Valancourt says, "Will you be releasing a 50th anniversary album, or is that what you're talking about?" Well, we could be talking about that, but we're actually talking about Brian's first solo release, "Pleasure Doing Business." That's going to be coming out, and I think you're going to have a release party for that, aren't you?
well, I'm hoping to have the record out by June, right? But we'll see. We're in May now. I haven't heard from him yet, so as soon as I get it ready, I'm going to drive down, at least bring back a few. I have to probably pay at the border to bring them back, though.
So we're going to have to. I mean, we might have some opportunities where Brian might appear with his albums, where you can buy the album and come and get it signed by him.
Are you talking the acoustic shows?
No, well, they can come and get a signed album there if you have the album with you at the shows. But I know you're going to be at some point in time have those albums in hand, and maybe we're going to have to set up some public signings.
Well, come up to the show. That's the best place to get them signed.
There we go. Go to a Helix, go to a show and get them signed.
Great, but I've done some of those book signings before, and they're awfully lonely affairs. Or
Right.
or record store signings. It's like, hi, already
Okay. So
already,
these women are already doing some of our planning here for us. When will you be releasing a 50th anniversary album? So I think there should be a 50th anniversary Helix album that comes out, and we could take some of the best cuts off all of their albums and put out a 50th anniversary. Hopefully, I know we're working on some of those other tracks too. We won't talk about those on the air tonight, but we're talking about getting access to those. And here's another idea. What about a Helix box set?
well, the problem with the box side is that four of the albums in the catalog are owned by Capital EMI, which is now owned by Universal.
Right,
Oh, I'd have to buy back all the licensing rights, and then you got to get them all pressed up. But you're talking major coin to get
right,
that together.
right.
I,
Well,
I have approached by different people about doing something like that, but we'll see. I'll believe it when I see it.
maybe a black and white album, with the first two albums on it, and
Well,
remastered.
if I re-release those albums on vinyl, I'd do it separately. I do them like they originally were done.
Right.
I hate changing stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like we've had a discussion before, right? I know you like to remaster and stuff, but there's some magic sometimes in things that the original version, reason they were popular in the first place.
And if you have something in there that doesn't require that, you hear that, and it's on every single track, then you don't touch it. You leave it just as it is. Leave it untouched.
Well, it's not always sound quality. Like if you can listen to some Lenny Kravitz songs where the drums are like garbage cans being whacked on. Same thing with they're smashing on a top of luggage or something. So obviously, sound quality doesn't make the song necessarily better.
Yeah,
Like,
for the day.
usually, for the most part, you want good sound. But I'm saying that it's not necessarily good sound that makes a good song. Like
True.
you could have the shittiest sound in the world and still have a great song. And
That true.
there's lots of examples out there, right? Like
Right. I
like
think you guys had. I think you guys had both.
Eric Burden and more. Sky Violet. Holy cow. Come on, guys.
Yeah, there's a. You'll actually be able to get the complete discography off of IndieTunes.com. We're going to have the complete Helix discography at some point in time. We may never get access to the Capitol stuff, but we'll see what happens over time. I know that you've talked about seeing what that might materialize, and you never know, right?
Well, I have talked to Warren Stewart from Universal about it. Warren used to be with Copley Mai, so we'll see where that goes. And I know that I've been approached by other people like Gordy Pryor, who wrote Power Rock and Roll with me, and Steve George Kapopoulos. Gordy's now working with Sing Records, so maybe they're kind of re-releasing stuff like this, and so we'll see what happens. I don't know.
You never know.
I think there's a big market for this stuff, but a lot of people are trying to just figure out how they're going to actually sell it and make money.
Yeah.
That's always the big problem, right? Like when I release music, I have an ulterior motive, and that's my live gigs. Because I think when you're releasing new material, people have a different perspective of the band. They regard you as an ongoing concern. In other words, an ongoing artist. Artists continue to release music. They just don't stop. That was my point before.
Yeah, I mean, there's a question here, and I want to answer. I want to address it because I think it's an important question to answer. Elizabeth says, original versions are the best. Does remastering or remixing have anything to do with the dreaded auto tuning that record companies seem enamored with? It kills the real emotive voices. In my estimation, that's not what I think about. I don't think about auto tune at all as part of mastering.
You can't do it anyway because you don't have separate tracks.
No, but what I'm saying is when I think of mastering, I don't think about auto tune as being even an option.
Well, that's mixing. They don't use
that
because it's the music business, right? Mixing is actually when you're mixing, say, the level of the bass drum with the level of the toms or something, right? That's mixing. Okay?
Yeah.
Or EQing a voice that it fits in the track properly.
That's right. That's right.
But most of the tracks that you have, that they're finished tracks, you can't change levels. You can change the high end or the low end, or add schna and schnee, and that's about it. You're limited.
Yeah, there's actually, I mean, there's different things you can add in that enhances the sound frequencies that didn't exist back in the day that the song was produced. So, for example, EQing, perhaps some compression, and even stereo separation. There's some great plugins that offer stereo separation where you can actually just take and separate the stereo sounds a little bit more, so it takes away, because old stereo recordings were really made from mono tracks.
Yeah, I think you're getting a bit technical though.
I know.
She's basically asking, like, what are you going to do to it, right?
Nothing.
And I'm saying there's only so much you can do with it because you got the individual tracks anyway.
Yeah, and auto tuning, in your estimation, would be
like they can't auto tune the track because you can't separate the track.
That's right.
In other words, you can't auto tune the vocals on those old tracks because you can't separate the vocal track from the guitar track, the drum track.
Great point. Great point for sure.
So no auto tuning.
We've got some new
Even when we
some
nowadays, so Daryl
new Helix.
Daryl only is the very last resort uses auto tuning on my voice. Like we'll sit
Right.
there for an afternoon in the studio to get something right rather than use an auto tuner. We try not
Right.
because it does become unnatural sounding. Problem is, most singers nowadays don't sing often enough that they have the skill to sing on tune all the time. Uh,
Right.
you know, I'm actually amazed at how good kids are with nowhere to play. Like we
Right.
were playing 6, 7 nights a week with Saturday afternoon matinees.
Hey, listen, you did a short this week, and I really loved the short. You know what you said in that short? Do you remember what you said about
Fun.
the voice being an instrument?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
and
voice
about
sense
the
is
body.
because A, your voice is invisible, and B, you are the instrument. So if you wear it down, you abuse yourself somehow. So you
Right.
go first off in your voice.
So your first three don'ts to any vocalist. What are your first three don'ts? Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this.
I don't know. Do this. Get proper voice lessons.
There we go. Get proper voice lessons, and when including voice lessons, what are the three?
The
What are the
problem
three?
is know where to get proper voice lessons.
What are the three top things you think a vocalist should do with their voice?
Well, do as in what you're trying to achieve with your voice.
Um, yeah, but I mean, in terms of singing, what are things that you recommend to people when they want to improve their singing?
Well, I think that when you learn songs, cover songs, exactly, it improves your voice because you're learning from the best writers in the business. But for actual technique, there's not much you can copy songs and stuff. But once again, you get back to proper vocal technique. Most singers ruin their voices or get sore throats because they got too much tension around the thyroid cartilage, and the vocal cords become swollen initially. And then if you continue abusing your vocal cords, in other words, singing too much, then you develop nodes, which are like a callus in your vocal cord, which inhibits the vocal cords from vibrating correctly, and you lose
Right,
the top part of your range, right? And then singers go and compound the problem by going and getting their vocal cords scraped. Nowadays, they do it with a laser beam. They used to do it with an actual forceps, and people
right,
Adele now don't tour anymore because the operation is actually as bad as a damn node because it leaves scar tissue on the vocal
right,
cord. The operation is very delicate,
for
and you
sure.
go there. Besides, you can get your voice scraped, as Rod Stewart's done many times, but the nodes are going to keep coming back because you haven't gotten rid of the reason the node is there in the first place, which is muscular
Right,
tension. You're still singing the same way. Like, look at just because someone sounds good doesn't mean they're singing correctly. Because if that was the case, then you wouldn't have people like Stevie Nicks, Elton John, Rod Stewart. It just goes on and on and
the
on.
list goes on and on.
Voice. Obviously, the quality of their voice had nothing to do with whether or not they lost their voice.
Right.
Or whether or not they had a good technique. Because if they had proper technique, they wouldn't be losing their voice.
Well, you are a good example of somebody who's been able to really work hard at keeping their vocals in shape, keeping their vocals in range.
Well, I'm not the best singer in the world, but I'll tell you this: like when I went for vocal lessons way back in 1976, I was told I would never sing again. That's 1976,
Right.
right? So I went and Ed Johnson, who was my voice coach, he took me aside. And I remember he put his arm around my shoulder and he said, "Look at he said, just do what I tell you to do. Your nodes aren't going to go away overnight because you didn't get them overnight." And he said, "But if you do what I tell you to do, eventually your nodes will go away." And sure enough, my nodes eventually went away. And I went on to get 4 gold, 2 platinum albums. you know.
And you got your range back.
Career, and I'm still singing, and you know, I'll be 67 in a couple of weeks, and hooray. And I'm still singing.
That is a great testament. I think we're going to leave it there tonight, Brian. I mean, what a great time I got to spend with you tonight. I mean, all the way from,
Don't forget the beardless.
That's right. You are beardless now and looking great, looking sharp, man. Let's see you without. Can we see you without those shades for a second?
Cross-eyed. No.
Look at that guy. All right. Looking like the rock star that he is. Brian Vollmer of Helix, thanks for joining me tonight. We're going to sign off here. And so just hold that smile, Brian. We'll catch you on the flip-flop. That is Brian Vollmer. You are not. I'm Kenny. I'm Kenny. You're not. Brian, you do the whoosh.
Whoosh, baby.
Okay, now do the whole thing. The whole sign off.
Swear. See you around. Catch you on the flip side. Whoosh.